Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This audio uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. Today, we're diving deep into Kate Quinn's The Alice Network. It's historical fiction. It throws us headfirst into the world of female spies during World War I and the consequences that linger long after.
It's captivating. It's about courage and betrayal and about how war just keeps impacting everyone. It's told through two amazing women in different timelines.
That dual timeline thing already has me hooked. We've got excerpts from the book, so we get to hear their voices, like directly. So there's Charlie St. Clair in 1947. She's American, a socialite, and she's looking for her missing cousin in France right after the war. And then, bam, we're back in 1915 with Eve Gardiner in the trenches. She gets recruited into this secret spy network.
It's crazy how those stories come together. They're separate at first, but they show how war ripples through time across generations. And Eve's life as a spy, it's not all glamorous. Imagine being a young woman, dropped right into German-occupied France, having to pretend to be someone else while trying to figure out what the enemy is doing.
Sounds like a spy movie.
Yeah.
But with, real danger. I'm curious about the Alice Network. We see it in the excerpts. But what was it really?
It was real. A secret organization in World War I, mostly women. They were the unsung heroes. Gathering information, messing up German operations, risking their lives right under the enemy's noses. Eve gets pulled into it. It's led by this mysterious Lily.
That explains why Lily's so mysterious in the excerpts. So we have Eve undercover in the past and Charlie desperately searching in the present. But how do they connect? And what about this René Bordelon guy?
That's where the Oradour-sur-Glane massacre comes in. It really happened in World War II. The Nazis destroyed this whole French village. Horrible. And the book hints at a connection between Bordelon, Rose's disappearance, and this massacre.
Chilling. Sounds like Bordelon. The nice restaurant owner. Might have a dark side. And Eve's story, it's not just about being a spy. She's dealing with guilt and trauma. It feels like she wants revenge. And it's been building for decades.
You got it. It's not just about missions. It's about the scars war leaves, mental and emotional ones. We see how the Alice Network changed her run-ins with Bordelon, the horrors of war. They made her hard, maybe even vengeful.
So it's more than a sky thriller.
Yeah.
It's about how war messes with people's lives, the choices they make in crazy situations, and whether there's really any justice.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Alice Network so good. It blends these personal stories with real historical events. It's exciting and heartbreaking.
We've got two women, separated by time, but brought together by circumstance, trying to find answers amidst the chaos of war. And Bordelon's lurking in the shadows. He connects to both their stories, and maybe he holds the key to the truth.
It challenges our ideas about heroes and what's right and wrong, and the long-lasting impact of war.
I'm definitely interested. Before we move on, I want to know more about Eve's transformation. How does a sheltered young woman become a hardened spy? What kind of training did she go through?
The book doesn't get into the specifics of the training, but it shows what it did to her. Mentally and emotionally, we see her fear, the moral dilemmas. She has to harden herself to survive war.
Makes sense. Being a spy isn't just about learning tricks. It's about living in a world of lies, where you can't trust anyone. And betrayal could be around any corner. For Eve, those choices must be even harder when her feelings get mixed up in her missions.
Exactly. That conflict inside her, duty versus emotion, that's what makes Eve so interesting. Her journey, it's relatable even though it's so extraordinary.
What strikes me about Eve and Charlie is their resilience. Such different backgrounds and experiences, but they both face these impossible challenges head on.
That's a good point. It seems like Quinn put these two characters together to show how resilience has so many sides. Eve's resilience is forged in war. Years of danger and lies. Charlie's resilience, it comes from her innocence. She starts out sheltered, but she finds her inner strength as she navigates a world turned upside down by war.
Resilience is a spectrum, shaped by our experiences. I think exploring that will be really rewarding.
I agree. And it speaks to the bigger themes. Female strength and sisterhood, which are all over the novel. These women, so different. They find strength in each other, a bond that goes beyond time and circumstance.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, connection can be a source of incredible strength and resilience. I can't wait to explore that more. But before we go to the next part, I want to hear more about the challenges Charlie faces in France. What's it like there after the war?
Imagine a world still recovering. From the devastation, there's physical destruction, but also this deep sense of loss, displacement, and trauma. Charlie comes from America. With her own emotional baggage, she has to navigate this world. while trying to piece together what happened to her cousin.
Sounds daunting, physically and emotionally. It makes me think about memory in the story. How do Eve and Charlie deal with the past, both their own personal pasts and the bigger historical context?
That's a great question, and I think it's at the heart of the novel. Memory, both individual and collective, it shapes the narrative. Eve is haunted by her past, while Charlie searches for answers in a world shattered by war. And through their memories, broken and vivid, the truth starts to come out.
I'm sensing that the Alice Network is more than just spies and intrigue. It's a deep exploration of memory, trauma, and the human spirit.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so captivating, that blend of historical detail, psychological depth, and compelling storytelling.
I'm hooked. Can't wait to keep going. But for now, a question for our listener. What would you risk for family, for justice, or for something you believe in?
It's a question that connects to the themes of the book, and I'm sure our listeners will be thinking about it as they follow Eve and Charlie's journey. Diving deeper into Eve's story, I'm really struck by how Quinn portrays the tough moral choices spies have to make. It's not all gadgets and daring escapes. Eve's always facing these dilemmas, weighing the potential cost against the need for information.
That internal struggle, it must be so intense she can't trust anyone. Betrayal could be anywhere. One excerpt even mentions the weight of her secrets and the lives at stake.
And those secrets, they connect to Charlie's search in the present. Remember, she's not just looking for her cousin. She's trying to understand what happened to Rose during the war. The excerpts hint that Rose was involved in something secret too, maybe even connected to the Alice Network.
That would explain the mystery. It's like they're both working on a puzzle, each with the pieces of information. That might reveal something bigger when put together. In the Ordor-sur-Glane massacre, it has to be part of this puzzle somehow.
It's pivotal, a chilling reminder of how brutal war is and the trauma that follows. The excerpts suggest Bordelon was involved, and his actions impacted both Rose and Eve.
It's got to be devastating for Charlie. She thought Bordelon could help her. Now it seems like finding Rose is tied to uncovering the truth about Bordelon's past.
You got it. And this is where the two timelines really work. Eve's wartime experiences, Charlie's investigation in the present. Quinn shows us how the past shapes the present. Choices made during the war, secrets kept hidden. They all have consequences that echo through time, impacting everyone who comes after.
It reminds us that history, it's not just something in textbooks. It's a living force that affects us in huge ways. I'm curious, how does Quinn handle vengeance? Eve clearly resents Bordelon. Does she let that anger consume her harm?
That's what's so interesting about Eve. She wants revenge at first, but her journey becomes more complex. Talking with Charlie, unraveling secrets, she starts to question her motives and realize that hate doesn't solve anything.
So it's not just a revenge story. It's about how we process trauma and how we find a way to heal after tragedy. Speaking of healing, it's amazing how Eve and Charlie support each other, despite their age difference. And their totally different experiences, their bond seems to go beyond time and circumstance.
Absolutely. Quinn shows the power of women supporting women, how they can lift each other up, even when facing incredible adversity. Eve, with her tough exterior and her years of experience in a dangerous world, she becomes a mentor to Charlie, guiding her through post-war France.
And Charlie. She might seem naive at first, but she brings a new perspective, a determination that reignites Eve's purpose. It's like they're both searching for something more than answers or revenge. They want to belong, to find meaning in all the chaos.
It's a beautiful portrayal of how human connection can heal. Shared experiences can bridge gaps and create solidarity in tough times.
Makes you wonder about forgiveness. Can Eve forgive Bordelon? Can she find peace without revenge?
It's a question that runs through the whole story. Quinn handles it carefully. There are no easy answers, no simple solutions. The novel acknowledges the impact of trauma, the scars of betrayal and violence, but it also suggests forgiveness is possible. Even though it's hard, it's a step towards healing. And moving on.
It's a complex theme. It reflects the book's overall message. Even in darkness, there's hope. Resilience can bloom from tragedy.
And I think that's powerful for our listeners. As we wrap up this part, think about how forgiveness, resilience, and the human spirit connect to your own experiences.
It's an invitation to think about our own healing, our connections, and finding meaning in the face of adversity. I can't wait to explore this more in the final part of our discussion. Heading into this final part, I keep thinking about how the Alice Network, it weaves together all these things: espionage, history, personal stories, and seeking justice after war.
Yeah. And Quinn doesn't shy away from the dark stuff. She shows how brutal war is, the mental and emotional toll, and the moral gray areas people have to navigate. But there's also hope, this belief in the human spirit. to endure and even heal.
That's what makes it more than just a spy story. It asks these big questions about guilt, forgiveness, and the impact of trauma. We've talked about Eve's desire for revenge, but how does that play out? Does she find closure?
It's not a simple answer. There's no easy ending. Eve confronts Bordelon after years of rage and wanting him to pay, but it also forces her to face her own demons, the darkness that's been eating at her.
That must be a turning point, not just for Eve, but for Charlie's understanding of her family, too. Does it bring them closer to the truth about Rose?
Absolutely. It's a turning point in their search. The truth comes out in pieces, through memories, confessions, and secrets. I won't spoil the ending. But justice happens, though not without a cost. Eve and Charlie have to make tough choices, facing the complexity of right and wrong, and the limits of forgiveness.
So it's not a clean, happy ending, it sounds like Quinn shows us. The messy reality of healing, and how war keeps affecting people's lives.
Exactly. And that's what makes the ending so powerful. It sticks with you and makes you think about how historical events impact us, the ripple effects across generations, and our own journeys of resilience.
The Alice Network is more than a thriller. It's about the human spirit, forgiveness, and the strength we find in each other.
And it raises questions for our listeners. How do we deal with trauma and injustice? How do we find meaning in a world full of conflict?
It reminds us that even in dark times, there's hope in stories, in our connections, and in our resilience.
If you want a book that will stay with you, that will make you think about history, morality, and what it means to be human, you have to read The Alice Network.
We highly recommend it. You can find a link to buy the book in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe to the channel for more insightful book discussions that will nourish your mind on the go.
Until next time, keep reading.